the original Roadhouse, this Douglas Sirkian formality. Dean Cundey was the DP, and it just looked great. I mean, it's a ludicrous movie, but I think it's aware of its ludicrousness.
Oh, it's completely aware.
Ben Gazzara is aware of his ludicrousness.
Oh, yeah. Oh, him driving around on the road. You're right. It's nasty. It has actually the rough violence of an Italian crime, 70s crime movie.
Yes.
And one of the great bad guy lines in the 80s was after hearing about how tough this guy is forever, the bouncer guy that Patrick Swayze plays, when he finally fights the bad guy at the end, and the bad guy gets him in a clinch and goes, I used to fuck guys like you in prison.
I used to fuck guys like you in prison.
Yeah, it's a great line. It's a great line.
And then how does he kill him? How does he kill him? Doesn't he reach in and pull out his heart?
Yeah.
Yes, he does.
Well, and also, when Carpenter does Halloween, he's going to be written about in every genre magazine in the world.
She's amazing. One of the, she truly started the final girl. Mm-hmm. The real final girl aspect, all right? And she carries that movie on her broad shoulders. The only taint, and it does have a taint, all right? And Kim Newman, the genre critic, agrees with me that in Halloween 2, Deborah Hill and John Carpenter do the cheapest thing just to throw a little whammy in the movie, and they make it that Laurie and Michael Myers are brother and sister. Mm-hmm. And that taints every single Halloween sequel that happens afterwards, because he's not her brother. She's not his sister. That's just bullshit. That literally was them coming up with a stupid idea at the last minute. Yeah, but it's the cheapest thing. Nobody was coming from that point of view when they were making the first one. And what makes the first one so good is the fact that you don't know what it is that makes Michael Myers go, her.
Richard Franklin had everything going against him when he did the Psycho 2 sequel, because in a strange way, back in that time in the 80s, Psycho was even more revered than it is now. And Hitchcock was definitely more revered than he is now. By the 80s, Hitchcock was treated like some sort of cinematic saint. So the idea of remaking a Hitchcock film, or the idea, even though there was quite a few of them out there, the 39 Steps had just been remade, The Lady Vanishes had just been remade. Yeah, well, the idea of remaking, but especially sequelizing, people talked about it like sacrilege. I mean, to the degree, I think I remember on the Tom Snyder show, a three-way conversation between David Cronenberg, Jeanette Schwartz, and John Carpenter. And they're talking about the state of horror films, and then they mention, what do you think about the Psycho sequel coming out? And they were like, oh, I wouldn't touch that. I wouldn't touch it. Well, you're going to try to be better than Hitch? Forget about it. I did not feel that way. One, because I'm not as enamored with Hitchcock as everybody else is, nor am I nor am I overly enamored with Psycho. But I was enamored with Richard Franklin. He was my favorite of all the Australian directors. He was the Australian Hitchcock. Customers love that stuff. So whenever we got a Hitchcockian type of movie, but there was a new movie, we always pushed it. Well, Road Games was one of the best. So the idea that Richard Franklin was now he's got the opportunity to do the second story. And I met Richard Franklin at the time that he was making the movie. I asked him, I go, what are your ambitions for the movie? I mean, it does seem like everybody wants it to fail. Everyone, they resent it. They think it's sacrilege. How are you handling that? He goes, well, people are going to say whatever they're going to say, but hopefully when they see the movie, they'll feel different. I go, well, what are your hopes for it? He goes, well, my hopes for it is that you like the first movie, and that you'll like the second movie. And maybe 10 years from now or 15 years from now, you'll think about a scene from one or the other one, but you won't exactly remember which one you were thinking about, because it's just all the Norman Bates story. And that's what he did. He didn't just interject, okay, Norman Bates, the killer, is back. He made it the Norman Bates story. And Norman Bates was the actual hero of the story. And I think, not only do I think Anthony Perkins is even as great as he is in Psycho, I think he's even better in Psycho too. I think it's one of the great lead performances in any horror film ever made, his performance in Psycho 2. I mean, it's just a magnificent performance. You bought a ticket to see a boogeyman, and now, I mean, from the moment he shows up with Robert Loggia, who normally is so abrasive and is like the best, is like the coolest psychiatrist in the history of movies in that movie. You're like, Robert Loggia? Yeah, really, he is. But when the minute they show up and they talk and everything, all of a sudden now you are rooting for Norman. You're rooting for Norman to keep it together. You're rooting for Norman to be sane, to be happy. You're actually rooting for him to be happy. And now you don't want any of the horror stuff to happen. And me and my friends, we liked it so much that, like, we got into a passionate discussion about it afterwards. And you know what? He would have been okay. If that damn bitch would have left him alone, he would have been okay.
Are you gonna bark all day, little doggy? Or are you gonna bite?
The Thing was probably the one movie of all the like individual films that I've seen that like probably influenced dogs the most, because it's in some ways it's it's the same idea where you have a bunch of guys trapped in a situation that they can't get out of, in a very claustrophobic situation where nobody can trust anybody else. It scared the living hell out of me. And the thing about it is the tension and the anxiety and the claustrophobia and the fear and the distrust that was running around those men, all right, came straight out into the movie theater. And what I wanted was to achieve that same kind of effect with an audience The Thing had with me.
Yeah, you know a film that actually is a big influence on the film is John Carpenter's remake of The Thing. It's very similar, all right? And I mean, I didn't do anything, like take anything from it, but I wanted to capture that same feeling. In The Thing, you have all these guys trapped in this room, all right? And no one can trust anybody else, and they can't go anywhere else, and they just have to deal with each other, which is exactly the exact same situation in Reservoir Dogs. And what I wanted to achieve is what I felt that film achieved when I first saw it at the theaters, was the tension of those guys in that situation was so great, and there was no release of it because it was so claustrophobic that the only place that tension could go was right out into the audience. And that's how I felt when I was looking at The Thing. And that's what I wanted to achieve in my movie.
The thing about it was, actually, one of the reasons that The Thing holds a special place in my heart is the idea that I love horror movies. I'm a big horror movie fan. I don't get scared in horror movies. I respond to suspense. I respond to that. But, what's going to happen next? And I can jump by a boo scare, but that's not really terror. I don't get scared in movies. The Thing I got scared in, and I was scared, and it made me want to put it under a microscope about why I was actually frightened during that movie. And I think the reason is this, is because if you know the movie, part of the situation is these men are trapped in this situation in this Arctic Research Center. And so one or more of them are possibly this thing that's going to devour all of them. And no one knows if you are the guy I've known forever or if you're a thing.
Right.
And the movie makes the paranoia of that so palpable, so real. It's almost like another character in the movie, just the sheer paranoia of it. But they're trapped in the Antarctic. They're trapped in this shelter. And so the paranoia is bouncing off of the four walls, bouncing, the fear, the paranoia, bouncing, until it has nowhere to go except through the fourth wall into the audience. And I started feeling exactly like they felt.
Music time's over.
If there's one movie that probably is the one that is most similar in its own way, I guess via the mise en scène and the tone of the film, it would probably be The Thing. But that's interesting because there's a Reservoir Dogs quality to this film, but Reservoir Dogs, The Thing was a big influence on Reservoir Dogs, and I mean there's obviously aspects about it that that are similar.
Kurt Russell is one of the stars. Ennio Morricone does the soundtrack, and there's the snow. Those are big elements, but those are what they are. The real elements that I think what the Carpenter's The Thing has to do with my film is the fact that they're both studies of paranoia. None of the characters can trust the other characters, but yet they're trapped together because they can't leave because of the harsh elements. And it's basically what happens as they try to deal with each other. And not only that, though, there is another aspect. I defined it when I saw The Thing, and I tried it in Reservoir Dogs, and I tried it in this movie, where, to me, the paranoia in The Thing was so thick, and it was so bottled up in that shelter, that the paranoia bounced on the walls throughout the movie until it had nowhere else to go but through the fourth wall and into the audience.